morning, Collinsville. My name is Yareli Reyes, and I am reporting from the CPN's news studio. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing DeKalb County Circuit Clerk Todd Greeson. Welcome, Mr. Greeson, and thank you for joining us today.
No, Yareli, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate being here.
Today we have a few questions for you that were submitted by students at Collinsville. What is a brief description of the job of a circuit clerk?
Well, the brief, it's sometimes hard to be brief. The circuit clerk wears what we call many hats, as I was saying. The circuit clerk is, we handle all paperwork that goes through the court system, and that can be anything from small claims to capital murder. But there's other jobs we have. We handle all the money, and so all finances like fees, fines, and even like court may decree for the clerk to say, we want you to hold this money till a certain defendant reaches 19. That's usually a case where we have a defendant who was a minor, and but until you reach at 19, that money has to stay into either a trust or an interest-bearing account. We hold several accounts like that. We also, I'm the absentee ballot manager, and I'm an election officer. So there's 3 election officers in the county: the sheriff, probate judge, and the circuit clerk. We handle, and right now, of course, we're going through an election right now. In fact, today is the first day of absentee voting for the runoff. So before I came here, I was actually in there with my deputy clerk, and we were actually getting ballots processed and mailed out today for this. So, but you know, and probably one of the last things, we are also the only acceptance agents for passports. So we have a lot of jobs we do. I have 9 ladies in my office that work for me.
What motivated you to become a circuit clerk?
Well, I was already in government. I was working, I used to be a legislator, and I was also assistant director of Alabama EMA, and my boss was changed out. My family and some had been encouraged me to think about coming back and running for a local office where I could be home, and my wife, probably my biggest definitely my biggest supporter and advocate. We had a long talk in a December time frame in 2017. So I decided she was encouraging me to run. So in 2017 on a Thursday night, I said, well, let's do it. So I ran. We got up the next day, made 2 magnets on Friday, and then Saturday morning I was in a Christmas parade, and I all I had was 2 magnets, and that's how I got into this race and ran. It was in 2018. I'm running for re-election. I'm unopposed, but I'm running for re-election this time.
Can you describe what it took to run for and win this position?
Well, I campaigned the entire year of 2018. It takes quite a bit of money. You can probably spend $50,000 to $100,000 running a countywide race. But also during that time frame, I would spend anywhere from 10 to 18 hours a day, just either campaigning, either at events, knocking on doors. I try to be very active in my community because, you know, you're a public servant, and you do get kind of caught up where I work in the courthouse, and so I try to make it an effort to get out into my communities, whether it be certain events, and stay on top and in tune to what's going on in my community. So it takes it does take a lot of finances, it takes a lot of work and time, and you know, it helps that your family is supportive, and my wife is very supportive of this career.
What parts of your education benefits you the most in this position?
Well, I have 2 undergrads, and I have a master's. My master's is in public administration, which is ironic, and then I have a business degree and a political science degree. We manage all the finances, so probably one of the biggest aspects that's helped me is that I've been on budget committees. Most clerks, and there's 68 clerks, 1 for each county in the city of Bessemer, where most of them hire a bookkeeper. I do my own bookkeeping work, so I reconcile 50 accounts every month. So what has really helped me the most is that when I entered this job, there really was no bookkeeper, but it was something I was not intimidated by, because I've been on budget committees in the legislature. I've dealt with finances at EMA. So it was not something I was intimidated, and that's probably helped me the most is for the business and managing finances.
What experience did you have in government before holding this position?
Well, I ran in '98 for the state legislature house. Served 16 years. I served, and on this, it's similar to what Congress, you'll hear about committees they serve on. I served on what we call the Ways and Means Education, which is the committee in Montgomery that decides how the money is appropriated to your education. I served 12 years on that. I served about 9 years on what we call Rules, which is the committee that sets the agenda, what's voted on the floor. And then I served 4 years on Judiciary, which is the committee that basically handles most of your legislation deal with criminal law. And so I served there. Then after I got out of the House, I made an attempt to run for the state Senate. I lost in the primary. It expanded into 3 counties, but I was hired by Art Faulkner, who was the Alabama EMA director at the time, in Clanton, Alabama, and I worked for him 3 years as his assistant. And then from there, he wound up, when they changed governors, these appointments always change when governors change, so when he was his appointment ended with the previous governor. When his appointment ended, the new appointee come in and he wanted his assistant director in, so that's just generally how it works. So I spent 3 years there and 16 in the legislature.
And then I know you were talking about running for Senate. Would you be expecting to run for Senate this coming years?
No, I have not. My opponent then is the current senator, Senator Livingston. He and I are good friends. You know, sometimes you get in these races and you think, you don't like each other, but that really was not the case. And I remember one of the first events after that primary, he came to Ider, and I introduced him to some at the rescue squad. So Steve and I have got a good relationship. He's now the majority leader. So. In the Senate, so he's moved up, and he's done a good job representing this county. He represents Jackson County, most of DeKalb, and parts of Madison. So I have no intention of doing that. I probably my intent is to stay where I'm at. I'm now running for my second for re-election, be the second term. So and if health goes well, I probably will run the third term.
How can the public access trial records through your office?
Well, they can come in and ask. We have a records request, but we do have a law library. It's on the second floor, and you can access the records that are public. Some records are not public. Juvenile records are confidential, along with grand jury is a very confidential. You can access that. There's some records on my floor that cannot be filmed, videoed, or have access to, and that's juvenile, grand jury. Other records that's confidential, passports. Those applications got personal information. And right now, absentee voting, you cannot film or record anybody voting. But as far as public records, there is a law library. It has a public access computer. You can search by name, you can search by case number, and you're allowed to you can access any public record from our office in that law library. You can ask us, but it's sometimes people that's got to do a lot of research. We'll send them back there and they can sit down. Now, we do charge a copy fee. If you want copies made, we have to charge fees. But as far as accessing the information, it's free to the public. Okay.
And with the public library, would that just be with the state of Alabama, or would it be anywhere near us?
Well, it is. We have what we call a law library. There's supposed to be one in every clerk's office, so you can access one in each clerk. It just access what we call a la carte. So in this you have view only. On our end, we're able to actually what we call write, which we actually scan records into a file. So, but the public can view those if they're a public record.
Can you express to our students the importance of serving on jury duty?
Jury duty, we have one usually every month. We just finished week 4 last. It is a civic duty. It's like military service. Our judiciary system would not operate without jurors. And sometimes it's not even about you serving, actually being there and being on the case. It's your presence. We have, most cases are settled, what we call, you'll hear about plea deals, and they're settled. Most cases have to be settled that way. You just don't have the time. A jury trial takes so much time. But we'll have a week coming up the before the jury, and they'll call it plea week, and they'll either plea, and then you'll have the ones that don't. They'll be set up for a jury trial. Sometimes during that day of jury trial, they'll actually accept whatever deal they have, or go ahead and plead guilty, or instead of, because sometimes everybody say they want a jury trial. Well, once you're facing that 12 to 13 people that's going to decide your fate, sometimes they get a little more cold feet. But without the jury, our judiciary system would not be, it would just shut down. So it's very important, and it's a civic duty. It's just like serving in your military.
What happens if someone doesn't show up for jury duty?
Well, there's several reasons why some don't. Some never get the notice. Our jury duty is selected by driver's license. It's not voter ID. And sometimes people's driver's license may have the wrong address. Sometimes they may have a P.O. box. So some of those are undeliverable. Once you're sworn in and you are there to report for jury duty, the judge can send someone out, send the sheriff's office out to find you if you don't show up. And I've made some phone calls where some didn't show back up, and just encouraged them to come back so we wouldn't have to do that. But in most cases, we don't have that problem. It's very rare.
How old do you have to be able to be on jury duty?
I believe 18. I've had a high school student get called for jury duty a few months ago.
No.
He was a senior at 5. And of course, he did not get selected. I think but we really did appreciate him showing up and for his commitment to jury duty, and we gave him an excuse and all that, but he missed one day, half a day. He might have missed a whole day. I don't know. After we give you your jury excuse, if you go back to work or school, that's on you. We just give you the excuse for the day. But yes, it is. You can be called, even as a high school student, if your age falls in it. So he was.
In what cases is absentee voting allowed in DeKalb County, and how is it carried out?
We're currently doing that now in the runoff. We have an absentee. We have an application. It can be for reasons you're going to be out of county, physically incapacitated. Elderly, a lot of times, will vote absentee. Election officers, if you're working as an election officer or official at the polls, like helping with the polls, that some of them may work this poll and they vote in another. They'll come in and vote absentee that way, so they can cast their vote. There's several reasons. You can mail that application in to us with a copy of your ID. Now, if you're elderly and physically incapacitated, you're exempt. There's a box to check that, and you don't have to mail your ID. So there is exceptions to that photo ID. But the most part, people are just going to be out of county, just mail a copy of your license. We verify through a computer the ID of that person and make sure that the one that's voting is that person that's voting. It's not just
somebody random.
Randomness. That does not happen. And every ballot is accounted for. We have to go through a process of what ballots we have, what ones we don't use. We have a process of confirming the number that we voted, the number that was returned, the ones that did not. We mail out ballots. Some of them do not get mailed back. So we hear a lot of stories nationwide about how voter security, ballot security throughout the other parts of the country. We really don't have that problem here in Alabama. We have really one of the more secure absentee voting systems in the country.
Is voting absentee as secure as voting in person?
Yes, actually more.
Can you tell us why?
When you come in, I make a copy of your voter ID. So you can vote in person. Some people come in and vote in person. When I was leaving, we had one person was in there voting right now, and my deputy clerk was handling it. So we make a copy of their ID. We run that through the system, voter registration. We verify their address, their date of birth. We'll verify their driver's license number and their social security number. We don't have the number of volume coming in, so in essence, absentee is actually more secure than voting in person, because there's just we have more time to be more diligent.
And then our last question: what would you say is the biggest challenge in your job?
Staying caught up. I have and managing 9 people. Sometimes that can be a challenge, but without them, I couldn't. My office would shut down. They're all very. Most of my clerks are. They're very expert in their field. Most of them handle one aspect. I have a clerk that handles all the juvenile and I have a couple of one of them that handles all the grand jury. So I don't try to micromanage. They know to come to me and when we have issues, because we're going to have everything. Sometimes gets routine, but they know when to come talk to me when there's something that this may be a little more out of routine. So I try not to stay over the shoulder and micromanage, but sometimes the biggest challenge to me is staying caught up, and sometimes just being the manager. That sometimes you have to. It's like, I guess I've read Nick Saban when we talk about it being a head football coach. Is basically he was managing coaches, and basically I wound up managing the clerks, and some of the things they do I can't do because there's so many jobs and so many aspects that we have to manage. But I do manage all the bookkeeping, so I stay on top of it, and that's something I try to make it a point. I even come out on Saturdays sometimes. Saturdays, there's nobody in the office, there's no phone ringing. I can sit down and get all the finances caught up at one time, because the hardest thing on finance is if you get disturbed, then you got to come back and then pick up where you left off. Sometimes you make mistakes like when that occurs. So there's some Saturdays I'll just come in and do my finances so I can stay caught up and I make fewer mistakes that way.
Okay. That's all we have for today. We want to thank Circuit Clerk Todd Greeson for joining us today and answering all of our questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Collins with Panther Network to keep up with our latest content.